Hello and welcome to Yesterday's Airlines. In this review I'm going to take a closer look at the new sample model for the Boeing 747SP, which has been sent to me by NG Models themselves. Now, when NG said they were going to make a 747SP, I actually wasn't as excited as I might have been for some other types, but after I've looked through the other 747SP molds available, now I'm feeling the excitement, and this new mold is pretty exquisite, especially in comparison. So in this review, what I'll do is we'll have a look around the new mold and I'll compare it to the existing molds that you can see I've got examples of in the background. So there's not going to be any real scoring going on in this one. Obviously it's a blank model, it doesn't have aerials, there's no printing. But at the same time, we should be able to get a pretty good idea about its quality in comparison to the existing molds. So before I start actually looking over the model, first of all I have to apologise because I literally just a second ago accidentally broke one of the wingtip aerials off. So sorry about that. But as you can see, the other one is still attached. This is something that happens far too often with 747 models, but in this case I was just being clumsy, so oops. But never mind. Let's have a look at the model. Obviously this is a modern mold, so it's a not cradle fit. The wings slot in nicely into the fuselage here, and it's a very tight seam, very beautifully crafted, and that means that you've obviously got plenty of scope for having a very realistic fuselage joint fairing here and across and around the back as well. And you see that lovely shape of that, and really nicely crafted, which is a major improvement over the older Gemini mold, which you can see in the background here, which of course, that's incidentally why it fell off, because the tail of this came off, it dropped and hit the wing. Oops, never mind. Anyway, you can see on the Gemini 747SP that it's an old cradle fit mold, and the seam does not follow exactly the correct line of the fairing as it does on the new SP. I mean, this isn't surprising, and this is not bad-mouthing the old Gemini mold. This model dates from probably turn of the century, so it's it's an old mold, but it's still a decent enough mold, and it's a mold that's been updated multiple times by Gemini, which is credit to them. And for example, I've got here a much more modern version of the same mold, and you can see you can't do anything about it. The seam, you can't do anything about the cradle. It comes with these old molds. But, it looks really nice what has been achieved here with this seam, with this fit. So really happy with that on the NG version. Moving around to, the front of the model, you can see it looks, really nice from the front. Some really nice engine detailing going on here, and a really delicate seam join with the engine pylons onto the wing, which again is another issue which the old Gemini mold has, is that you've got quite a clumsy seam join. Again, it's the sort of thing you expect on a mold that's nearly 20 years old, but this new one obviously doesn't have any of these problems. Also, the shape of the engine pylons here is really nice. It's a different shape on the outer pylons, much curvier shape than it is on the much more angular shape of the inner pylons. And it's nice to see that the mold, replicates that detail. So, the mid portion of the mold, is looking really, really nice. The engines look really nice as well. This is the Pratt & Whitney JT9D version of the mold. And it's got really nice engine pylons and a wing join and a good wing overall. Looking at the actual remaining aerial on the wing, and yeah, it's pretty good as well. It's a little bit thicker than on some of the very older 747s, but as you've seen, they're incredibly prone to breaking even when they're like this, and I think that's a pretty decent representation. I mean, certainly in comparison to the updated Gemini mold, I think that pylon, that aerial is, comparable. It's a little bit longer, in fact, probably, and looks pretty good. So no big concerns there with the wing, no concerns really with the fuselage join. It's got really nice undercarriage here, rolling gears obviously really, really good detail on those gear legs. You see that? Yeah, actually some really exquisite detailing, so really, really good. Okay, now what I want to have a look at is the nose and the cockpit area, and I actually think this is actually a really nice 747 nose. Some people think it's not quite pointy enough. I actually don't think that's the case. I think it's actually, you know, a really nice point, and I think it looks really good. The front nose gear is also really lovely, again, really detailed and very attractive, with really nice gear doors as well. You know, the one issue that has caused some contention so far in discussion around this mold is the cockpit region and the angle of this. I've looked at this close up against photographs lots of times, and I do think it is not 100% inaccurate. I think it perhaps is a little bit too angular there and doesn't curve quite as it might at the top, but it's very close, and I really think that mucking around with the mold at this point in time is probably not worth it for the tiny amount of improvement you gain. Something else which is really nice here, and it's hard to see on this very white version, is that there's actually, you know, a flat side here and also the front here where the cockpit will be printed on. It gives it a really nice feel, but one which is really hard to pick up through the camera, unfortunately, when there's no printing. So, you know, overall, I think this is actually a really, really, you know, nice mold, nice nose, and you know, I can forgive a slight imperfection in the shape of that forward fuselage there, especially when you look at the other molds in this space here. I mean, people were complaining about, you know, the pointiness of the nose. Well, the pointiness of the nose on the Gemini mold is probably less pointy, I'd say, and I think that the angle of the cockpit here is a little bit too laid back in a sense. So, you know, I actually think it's that the NG's got a better look in that space. Not that this is bad, but it's just not quite as good. Also, the hump on this Gemini JC 747 SP is a little bit kind of flat. Kind of just flattens out here a bit. I don't think it's quite as good. You know, if you look at the Herpa mold, which we haven't actually had much of a look at yet, then, you know, from the front, I think this has got quite a nice nose curve here. But again, I'm not entirely convinced by the fuselage area, but it could be perhaps just the cockpit printing. It's a pretty good nose actually on the Herpa, though the nose gear itself is classic Herpa. You know, it's that kind of light grey, kind of almost bordering translucent kind of plastic, which, you know, works on 500 scale models, doesn't really look very good on 400 scale models, so that's not so good. Other aspects of this mold which, you know, are not great are the engine pylons, which are completely the wrong shape here on the outboard section. You can see on the NG that they should be curving and a different shape, but here on the Herpa they just completely ignored that, and both of the pylons are the same, and this one, you know, actually hangs the engines too low. I mean, when you actually put this on the ground, the engines are way too close to the surface. So that's one of the weaknesses of the Herpa mold in comparison to this new NG models mold, which you can see hangs the engines really beautifully a decent distance above the tarmac. So, you know, I think that, yeah, there's a minor imperfection with perhaps quite the shape here, but it's not a deal breaker by any means, and it still looks much better than most of the other SPs around. You know, moving to the tail section, and that's one of the weaker spots of the Herpa, probably because you can see you've got this rather clear join between the fuselage and the tail, which, you know, isn't perfect. Obviously, the very old molds like this China Airlines version is, you know, before Gemini Jets 2, and so it has the rear tail seam here, which a lot of these SP releases do have, because most of them were produced, you know, nearly 20 years ago. That's been removed in later versions, and in fact the tail of the updated mold is actually very nice. So, you know, how does that compare to, you know, what we're seeing here with the NG models version? Yeah, I think it compares really well. You know, the NG models has a really nice tail cone. It's got this, it's quite hard to see again on a white model, but it's got the clear line here where the bulkhead changes. It's quite hard to see. I don't know if I can, there we go, maybe just pick that out. It's got, you know, the bulge curving down nicely, you know, and it's got a nice free rudder, as most modern molds do have, so that it's not connected, the tailplane, across the entire rear portion of the fuselage join there. So, actually, again, I think that the real tear area on this mold is better than what's existing. It's more modern because it's also got the free rudder. Everything else is there and correct. It's just not as nice on this Herper. You can't actually see the bulkhead join really, and the tailplane join is poor. And on the older Gemini, I mean, it kind of has, it's an older mold. It just has those less perfect details at times. So, I think that, in comparison, the NG mold is holding up really nicely, and looks like it's going to be a fantastic mold of this, unusual 747. Okay, so for the last portion of this review, I've swapped out the JT9 version of the new sample model for the Rolls-Royce RB211 version, which you can see has really nice engines. Looks really good, just as good as the JT9. Obviously there aren't as many options available for producing models with this, since only Qantas, Saudis and one other VIP aircraft were completed with the rollers. But as you can see moving around here, the mold looks really, really nice on the stand. Looks like a really good 747 in my opinion, and I think that overall this is going to prove to be a real winner for my collection. I'm going to get as many of these as I can. I think the detailing is exquisite. It's got a better tail than both the Herper and the Gemini. It's got a much better engine pylons than the Herper and Gemini. It's got a much more fine and detailed landing gear than any of the existing molds. And in my opinion, the nose is also a superior shaped nose than on the existing molds. I mean, in fact, I don't think there's anywhere where the existing molds clearly beat these new samples that I've been very graciously given by NG Models. So I think overall, this is going to be a winner. I hope you think that the molds look pretty good as well. I hope you enjoyed the video. I'll try not to break any more of the sample models I'm sent. And it's a really nice mold, and I look forward to see it come into production, which surely can only be a few months away. So if you enjoyed the video, obviously thanks very much for watching, and leave a like. Check out my website, Yesterday's Airlines. I've already done a print review of both of these sample models with lots of photos and details. So check that out. Keep an eye on all the new happenings at the site. I post really regularly, and hopefully you'll be seeing some new models from NG coming my way in the future. I've got upcoming a review of the new NG models A350, which I know a lot of people are really excited about, and I can say I've had a look over it today. It looks super impressive. So thanks very much for watching. Hope you enjoy the video. See you later.